Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Russian heavyweight Murat Gassiev is set to return to the ring on the 22nd of July in Moscow, Russia. His opponent will be Erkan Tepper. So this actually shapes as the first proper heavyweight fight, I guess you would say, for Murat Gassiev, who moved up from cruiserweight in 2018 or after his loss to Alexander Usyk in the World Boxing Super Series. But then he was beset by a range of different issues, including injury. Different fights were announced and then fell through, and ultimately he never had a fight on his deal with Matchroom and DAZN. So last year, towards the end of 2020, he had his first fight at heavyweight against a former cruiserweight, Nuri Safiri, who really isn't any good, and he obviously got the win in that one in one round. So since mid-2018, Murat Gassiev has had less than one round of action. So he will go up against Erkan Tepper, who has a record of 21-3. He's a decent-sized heavyweight at 6'5", 39 years old, and he's fought at a decent level in the heavyweight division. But let's face it, one, he's pretty faded now at 39, but two, he's never really looked the same since he was caught and is now off the juice. So I think this is going to be actually a good sort of tune-up fight in a sense. You know, probably decent rounds for Murat Gassiev, but I could actually see Gassiev getting a stoppage sort of mid to later rounds in this fight. And Erkan Tepper, he really hasn't been up to much in recent years since a brutal knockout loss to Robert Helenius in 2018. And here is a slow-mo of that left hand that absolutely wrecked Tepper. Since then, he's fought a couple of journeymen, hasn't been up to much in terms of being inside the ring, but he has actually, outside of the ring, been acting as a sparring partner. And here's a shot here. He was in Ajagba's most recent camp, for example. He's popped up all over the place in different guys' training camps in recent years. But inside the ring really hasn't been up to much. But I do expect that Murat Gassiev is going to get the win here and will probably maybe look a little bit rusty. He effectively really hasn't had any action in recent years, but I expect him to go in there, do his thing, ultimately break down, wear down, and stop Erkan Tepper, who is at the back end of his career and I think is, based off recent performances, there for the taking. But I think he will give him some good rounds early on and then get broken down and probably stopped later on in the fight. Just my pick. How about you? But in terms of Gassiev, good to see him actually making, a fist of the heavyweight division given what's happened in recent years. He says he wants to, be a factor in the division, and if he is going to be, he's going to have to fight. So this is a good first step, and actually based on recent posting on Instagram, which was, earlier in the day or less than a day since I'm recording this video, Gassiev is looking in decent condition. I mean, he has actually, when you look at some shots from when he was a cruiserweight, in recent years, he's bulked up considerably, but he's done it over time, so it's not all at once, and he doesn't look in bad shape at all. So I think, he will look okay in this fight, but just temper expectations, and let's hope that after this fight, which I expect he'll win, that he can be moved on and hopefully into something approaching at least a top 30 or top 40 sort of fight. Erkan Tepper is not really there anymore, but yeah, I don't mind this fight for Gassiev given the inactivity, and Tepper a faded force at this point, especially off the juice. Dillian Whyte has taken some jabs at Deontay Wilder, saying here, and this is for a post from Instagram, at Bronze Bomber, screaming with the lightweights, "Coward, I rep your max. Anytime, anywhere, we must fight. Let's go." And Dillian Whyte sort of pushing some tin here in the gym. And what he's referring to is that clip of Deontay Wilder where he's and I won't play the whole clip, and actually I did have it teed up but for whatever reason it's gone back to the start. Maybe we can sort of drag this out here, but you probably have seen this, but Deontay Wilder going in to do 310 pounds, which is 140 kilos, and here it is here, he's about to do it. And yeah, I mean, Deontay Wilder is a pretty, strong guy. Obviously, the legs are a little bit sort of on the thinner side. He's sort of struggling to get that one up, but he gets the rep in the end. So Dillian Whyte taking a pot shot at him, saying that he reps Deontay Wilder's max. Of course, these two, if they were to ever fight, the trash talk would be insane. I don't really sort of see it coming to fruition at this point. I mean, maybe for a couple of years for a money fight if both were, there and in the offing, maybe out of the title picture, but I don't see them fighting probably while they're in their primes. I think it's going to be one of those fights that doesn't happen. Anyway, getting on to some other guys that are fighting in July. So Tyson Fury, you can see here, this is something from his Instagram story that the WBC has posted. Fury gearing up for that fight with Deontay Wilder, the trilogy fight. And speaking of some of the guys that are on the undercard, so Fury is training in Las Vegas at the top-ranked facility, etc. He's been getting some rounds with a whole number of guys, and I will be doing a sparring video or, who's been sparring with Fury, all that sort of stuff. But a couple of guys that are also on that July the 24th card. You've got F.A. Ajagba, he's taking on Frank Sanchez, and Jared Anderson taking on Vladimir Tereshkin. So Anderson's going to wash Tereshkin pretty easy. Ajagba, that's a pretty tough fight. I think a lot of people are sort of split on how they're sort of seeing that one going. But these guys getting good rounds with each other. Ajagba saying July the 24th is going to be fire. We can't wait. And then adding people, etc. And someone who is also on the undercard, but from the PBC side of the fence, or Robert Helenius has an option, or PBC has an option on him for this fight. He's having that rematch with Adam Kovnatski. So he is training in Finland, sparring here with Nathan Gorman. So I did have to have a little chuckle to myself, because actually Kovnatski and Gorman, very similar height, similar rotund build, bald as well, except I wondered about the sparring because they fight nothing alike. Adam Kovnatski coming forward pretty crude, rudimentary, letting his hands go volume, whereas Nathan Gorman does have a lot more technique and finesse and is more prone to boxing than sort of brawling. But obviously from what Robert Helenius is saying, he says this was real heavyweight sparring. Another guy who'll be back in the ring this month is the 6-0 prospect David Adeleye. So he'll be on the Joe Joyce Carlos Takam undercard in the United Kingdom. And BoxRec here says he's facing the Bulgarian Mladen Marnev. And if that name seems familiar, Marnev actually recently fought Solomon Dakers, and Dakers was taking the distance. That was his first pro fight. Marnev was very negative. So we could probably expect something similar. So I think what we're going to see, and this is probably part of the matchmaking, is David Adeleye having to break the guy down, actually work away on his man, just take him, break him down over rounds and potentially look for a stoppage later on. And given that last fight against Kamil Sokolowski, maybe this is a more appropriate fight for this level, because David Adeleye looked pretty, I don't want to say outclassed, but he didn't show against a guy in Kamil Sokolowski, who obviously is a very, durable, tough veteran journeyman. But if you're good enough, you should be beating Sokolowski convincingly. And Sokolowski has taken the scalp of some prospects in recent years, and he almost did for David Adeleye. And actually, I think a lot of people thought that David Adeleye was very lucky to get the decision there against Kamil Sokolowski. So he got the points win, but actually Sokolowski was the one who was the ring general. He was dictating the action for the most part, and I actually thought he did actually scrape the win there, 4-2. A lot of other people sort of feel similar. So I guess taking a step back to a guy in Mladen Marnev, who's a little bit more negative, there's not so much on the offensive output. He can actually get some rounds here, tough, durable guy. Good learning fight, I think, and a step down from Sokolowski. But I would like to see Adelaide try to have a rematch with Sokolowski at some point, because I think there will be a lot of fans out there who believe that Sokolowski was hard done by in that one, and he did enough work in many people's view to get the win. So Adelaide probably can count himself lucky. But he did actually, after the fight, David Adelaide really was sort of fronting as like he'd dominated that fight, and that wasn't the fight that I saw. Anyway, another guy who's joined Frank Warren's stable is George Fox. So George Fox signing with Warren, the 29-year-old who's currently 3-0. He'll also be appearing on that same undercard, opponent TBA. But he says, I'm delighted to be announcing the partnership with Queensbury, and we're looking to do big things in the sport. I have genuine aspirations of becoming world champion, I believe, coupled with the history of Frank Warren's establishment in the sport. I'm with the right people to guide me to success. He's got vast experience and has been on this journey many, many times. Hopefully, I will be another new addition who goes on to achieve great things. So in terms of George Fox, and he is the son of trainer Don Charles, 29 years old. So I think he needed to make this sort of move because his career had actually sort of been going nowhere fast. Actually, I'll just quickly get into his box rec. So 3-0 at the moment, but hasn't been in the ring since 2019. Only had one fight in that year, 2 fights in 2018. So effectively 3.5 years as a pro, 3 fights. So that's not necessarily the sort of early sort of prospect phase that you want to have. So I think hopefully if he, now that he's sort of attached to Frank Warren, they can get him out more regular. Effectively, you could say maybe he's effectively starting from scratch. He doesn't really have much of a profile in the heavyweight division, certainly does have some talent, but I'm looking forward to sort of seeing what George Fox can do. Looking a good addition to Frank Warren's stable. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.